Hey Ari, how's it going, brother?
Foti, what's going on, my friend?
Let me just start off by saying Happy Father's Day.
Oh yeah, happy Father's Day to you. I'm still relatively new, so like I'm not used to it. So thank you very much. I
My
appreciate
pleasure,
it.
my pleasure. I figure we'd do a shout out to us dads that are out there.
All the
Um,
dads taking care of business.
that's absolutely. And it is that time of year where the weather is getting, extremely hot. It's hot up here in Boston. I'm sure the weather down in Maryland is relatively hot as well.
Yes, it started off actually relatively cool today. Actually, this whole week was like kind of cloudy and cool, like 70s, which is weird because Maryland is usually hotter than Boston.
Right now, it's the
Uh,
opposite up here.
Yeah, so this last like week or two, like you guys kind of took all the heat and the sun, and we didn't have it.
Well,
And we woke up this morning and it was cloudy and cool, but as the day progressed, it got like really humid and hot, which sucks. But
we've been lucky with a long stretch of pretty consistent hotness.
yeah,
Lots of sun, barely any overcast, lots of sunshine, pretty hot, which calls for some cold, refreshing white wine.
yeah,
All right. So we've been on this kick lately in the last handful of segments. Because we're in the season, we're adjusting to wines that are more fitting for the weather and the climate.
yep,
So in this segment, in our sipping segment, we're going to explore Chardonnay, but not just any Chardonnay. We're going to explore the origins of Chardonnay, which actually happen to come from France. Not sure if you knew that, Ari, but
I'm
um,
gonna tell you right now. I originally started doing these sip clips with you because it's our job. So I'm like, yeah, we got to do this. But as these sip clips go on, I'm like looking forward to the next one because I'm learning so much. And it's just like interesting.
I'm,
It's super interesting stuff. And I'm so happy to learn it because I think all the viewers out there are happy to learn as much as I do.
well, I'm
And
glad that that's the case.
it goes for our webinars, it goes for our sip clips, it goes for all that stuff. So thank you
My,
for bringing the
excellent.
knowledge.
I'm glad that it's connecting and resonating with you, which hopefully translates to our audience. But there's a lot of fascinating information. There's actually so much information that it becomes overwhelming
Yeah,
uh, for most folks. And this is why we put these together, because I think it's important for us to be that outlet to kind of break things down for folks so that it's easier to understand.
yeah,
So when you're in a world of vast options and endless varieties of wine, we kind of forget about the origins. And Chardonnay happens to be that stronghold in the industry where it's the most recognized variety as far as wine goes, and it's also the most consumed white wine, believe it or not, as far as from a grape variety goes. But in the US, when someone thinks of Chardonnay, the majority of folks, 9 out of 10 times, associate Chardonnay with California.
yeah.
California has been the king of Chardonnay over and over throughout the years. And but in reality, Chardonnay actually originates from France. Um, and depending on where Chardonnay is grown, because it's grown all over the world on every corner of the different grape growing farmers, farming, and what have you, is that Chardonnay takes different characteristics depending where it comes from. So, what I'm trying to get is that when you think of Chardonnay, most folks think of full body, oaky, buttery Chardonnay. That's usually the identity of Chardonnay. And that means that it's a production that comes from California, where Chardonnay in other parts of the world are a little different. And specifically from France, Chardonnays are a lot different. If you were to pour them side by side, which other folks do to compare, you would definitely not think that French Chardonnay is Chardonnay because of the textures, flavors, and qualities. So in France, it takes on a different dynamic.
Do you have a personal preference yourself? Why California or French?
I've grown to appreciate both. So depending on how I'm feeling, it could be either or.
So
Um,
there's a different mood for each location.
exactly. But in the beginning, before I began to understand on how to appreciate wine, um, I was more of a California Chardonnay drinker. And that's what I thought was Chardonnay. And then when I started to discover other Chardonnays, in the beginning, I was like, wow, this is strange. How can Chardonnay, taste this way? But as I got into the industry and started to learn, I started to understand, and I began to appreciate that, you know, wine is almost like being an individual, depending on where the grapes grow, depending on the soil, depending on the climate, depending on the winemaker and their style and their approach. It could be completely different. There could be wines made in the same villages, uh, from the same soils, but they could be so different because the winemaker adds their own style on the wine. So there's so many variations. It could be endless, right?
Is it sad that I learned about Chardonnay from Alanis Morissette's song?
No, I think that's
It's
actually
like a
very
black
typical.
fly in the Chardonnay. So like people ask me about Chardonnay, and I'm like, black fly in the Chardonnay. That's a white wine. I like that.
See, that's un, unfortunately, fortunately, depending on who you are, um, people's
Unfortunately, it's me.
experiences with Chardonnay is so different. But well, Chardonnay made its presence here in the U.S. Back during the '60s, and probably even before when they started to plant Chardonnay in California. It was one of the first varieties that was planted in California. So because of that, it's had a longer history here. So it got into the market early on, and to this day, the number one white wine consumed in the country is Chardonnay. It's a staple category. It continues to be staple, even though there's other emerging varieties like Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, and so many others. Chardonnay is still up there. But what I wanted to highlight in our sip clip is actually experiencing French Chardonnay and appreciating it for what it's worth, and how we can kind of distinguish the difference. So real quickly, uh, where we're going to actually go to in France is Burgundy. And in Burgundy, they basically plant two grape varieties. If you're picking up a bottle of white wine from Burgundy, and it actually says Burgundy on the label, you're having Chardonnay. So the only grape allowed to be planted in Burgundy for white wine production is Chardonnay. And if you pick up a
Ah,
bottle,
I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
yeah, and most folks don't know that. And Burgundy is a term that's been very loosely used in the U.S. over the years, where we associate Burgundy as red wine or red grape.
Yeah,
When I was a kid growing up, my father had jugs of Rossi Burgundy, and
I think all our immigrant parents did.
right, and the French actually were very upset with the fact that we were using their protected terms or regions in their respected wine industry to label our wines, because basically Rossi were inexpensive jug wines. Meanwhile, Burgundy is a very reputable location. So, long story short, the French put an end to us using their locations on our wine. Same thing with Chablis. When we think of Chablis, we think of an inexpensive white wine from California, but Chablis is a protected area in Burgundy that makes exceptional Chardonnay. So what I'm trying to get is that in Burgundy, which is the main region, and within Burgundy, you have all these little villages. Um, the the only grape allowed that's white to make white wine is Chardonnay. And then for red wine production, if you pick up a bottle of red wine from Burgundy, so that if it says Burgundy in the bottle, then you're having Pinot Noir. That's the only grape allowed to produce red wine in Burgundy.
Interesting.
And right, so most folks did not know that. but of course, how would they know if they didn't study it, or if it wasn't told, or if it wasn't mentioned to them? So they're very, very precise with what they do. They're very meticulous, very disciplined. Farmers, producers, what have you, and the result of all that is they make very elegant wines. So Chardonnay from Burgundy, from me personally, I like to let folks know it's actually an elegant white wine. It has tremendous balance, like very inviting aromas. The mouthfeel is fantastic. The flavors are delicious. The finish is clean. All that is the result of very hard work in the farm, in the vineyards, and also very hard work in the winery to accomplish and achieve this level of quality. Um, so I'm a big fan of French wines because of the consistent discipline and the consistency of quality that they always produce.
Yeah.
Um, so I always like to pay tribute to French wines because basically, if you were ever to read up on a lot of winemakers around the world, uh, one way or the other, some winemaker in any given country has had some experience either in France, or in French winemaking. It's basically the mecca of the wine world, where folks go to learn about, what does it take to become an exceptional wine producer. And most folks who want to get in the wine industry will study in France or will work in a winery in France,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So what we're gonna try together, Ari. Was this your first experience with French Chardonnay? Will it be your first? I hope
I'm going
so.
to tell you the honest truth. I've had all
I
sorts of experiences with wine, and I have no idea if this is my first.
I think I've snuck a couple of French Chardonnays during our events. You
I've
probably didn't
hung
know.
out with you long enough to believe that I've tried many things that I'm unaware of.
All right. Well, we'll
Let's
leave that for another. We'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, let's taste it and we'll see if it's.
So what I chose is a selection from Joseph Drouin, which is one of my favorite producers, very reputable, uh, who actually makes both red and white Burgundy. And this particular selection comes from the appellation of Saint Baron, which is in Beaune, which makes, in my opinion, some of the most tastiest Chardonnays that I've ever had. Now, keep in mind, French Chardonnays lack that oakiness and butteriness that California Chardonnays because of the way it's produced. They don't use the same barrels like they do in California. So what makes this, I'm just going to try to keep it simple because I don't want
Yeah,
to lose you.
yeah,
In California, they basically use new barrels. When I mean new, like fresh cut barrels where the wood is brand new.
okay.
And in France, they use barrels that are basically have been used. So they've had usage. So the difference between that is that with new barrels, we get more of the essence of the wood into the flavor of the wine. When barrels have been used, there's less presence of that, woodiness that goes into the wine. If that makes any sense,
It makes sense, and that's interesting.
right?
I
So if a
never really
barrel's been
thought
used
about
over and
that.
over, so there's a lot of chemistry behind. But I don't want to get too technical. But what I want to do is basically give you a little bit of a preview and then taste together to see what you think. So
Yeah,
this is a twist cap, which is I'm a big fan of, right?
yeah.
So
That's because they're labeled.
if you see winemakers in Burgundy using twist caps, then it's okay for the wine to be in a twist cap. There we go. Pour a little bit.
It's just so much more convenient.
All right. So right away, Ari, as soon as the wine goes into the glass, I mean, you can smell these ripe aromas of tropical fruit, in my opinion. They're very, very prominent. I'm not sure if you're getting in the glass, but
I do.
right. And then
My only problem is I use the same stupid glass every time we do a tasting, and it's like horrible of me to do, but I leave you to have the correct glass and for me to have these little stubby glasses.
I should have sent you a wine glass with Hollis there.
I'm trapped in quarantine, so I don't have much choice.
Okay, gotcha. But if you notice the color, it's a little
Yes,
bit of
it looks nice. It
uh,
looks
All right.
It looks,
Typically, Chardonnays have a little bit of a darker color than most white wines because of the grape,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not
Like I said,
as
it looks a
dark
little
as
darker.
California.
Yeah.
All right. Let's give this a sip. Wow.
It's nice.
Great mouthfeel. Again, ripe flavors. And what I mean by ripe flavors, peach, apricot, stone fruits is what's coming out of this wine, and it's still crisp, and it has this really soft finish. But
Yeah,
it definitely has a little bit of acidity. So it's combining tropical fruit, acidity, and a clean finish that makes this wine so well balanced that it's not overwhelming. Like some Chardonnays that we have from California have a bursting amount of flavor,
yeah,
very ripe oaky flavors, very ripe tropical flavors, very long finishes, which is fine.
yeah.
But this is something you can actually enjoy on its own and with food. When a wine tends to be a little too heavy for me, it's tough to actually enjoy a meal because I get so full on the wine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's just me. But here, what I want to express is that the wines that come from this area are so well balanced that they could be so uh, inviting on their own, but then they'll be so appropriate with dinner or lunch or maybe even breakfast if you want, I guess, right? But uh, this is what I want to highlight when it comes to wines that come from this part of the world is balance. And everything we do in life, in my opinion, requires balance. And here is a perfect example. Great aromas, great mouthfeel, great flavors, and a great finish. If you can nail down those four elements, then you're drinking a quality wine. Not, in my opinion, you can do that regardless of price. Cheers.
Yeah, I love it.
So that's a takeaway from this sip session is that for those of us that are on the fence about Chardonnay, because I hear folks all the time that either love it or they hate it. But what is it that they hate? It's they're referring to wines that are oaky and buttery. They don't like that.
Uh,
But once they start to explore Chardonnay outside of California, like this example, then that changes their mind or changes their perception. And I just wanted to highlight that you can enjoy. For those that don't like Chardonnay, definitely try French Chardonnay because it doesn't have those elements that are a turnoff to them, which is that oaky butteriness.
that's interesting. I never really thought of when somebody like me. I'll think of Chardonnay, and I'll just think of Chardonnay, not French Chardonnay, not California Chardonnay, just Chardonnay. But you've made me realize that there's Chardonnay, but there's different
Correct.
styles of Chardonnay, and one could suit you better than the other.
Right. And for those of us that like to explore and you really want to kind of get out there and expand your palate, um, going to a wine shop and browse in the French section and pick up any bottle that's from Burgundy. Um, they're definitely, you got to be careful because they can range in price points that are mid teens, high teens, but they can go as far as $40 and $50 a bottle. You don't need to go there. Getting a bottle in the high teens, I think, is a great example of a well-made Chardonnay from Burgundy. But anything you pick from that area, in my opinion, is just as good as whatever we have today in our glass.
Yeah. Is there anything that will drive you past the teens, past 20s, past 30s? Is there something that
Uh,
drives you to be
well,
like, I'm gonna pay for this?
well, for me, it's more about I like to read about a lot of different winemakers, and I love to learn about their story. When I get into a winemaker and their story, that's what drives me to try their wine, regardless of the price point. It becomes more of a passion to understand what they're doing and who they are. Even though I'm not looking to find that next level of greatness. I'm just looking to see and understand what they're doing. Um,
That's a good point. I like that.
but but yeah, there's definitely wines that have different price points, and I get that question all the time. Well, which one should I buy? Should I buy the $20 one or should I buy the $40 one from the same producer? Well, that's all subjective. It doesn't mean that the $40 bottle of wine is going to be better than the $20 bottle of wine because they have different expressions. So it's all up to you as an individual on why you would make that choice. Um, and an individual that means that I'm okay with having a $20 bottle versus a 40. It doesn't mean I have to buy the 40 to get a better wine. It's all about understanding why it's 40 versus a
Yeah,
20, right?
yeah.
So,
I mean, it makes sense.
um, so that's from my perspective. I will choose to go to a higher price point because I'm onto something when it comes to understanding who the winemaker is and what they're doing, and I read their story and I'm getting into it, and I'm getting into it. But beyond
Yeah,
that, I would never choose to buy a higher price point wine because I think I'm going to get a better wine.
yeah, that makes sense. And that's actually a good point because it's like, your average Joe is gonna go to a barbecue and he's gonna be like, well, can I get a good bottle of wine for like 15, 20 bucks? Yeah, you can. And then a person who kind of follows wine or is a little more educated in wine or is like, I don't know, considers himself like a connoisseur, may follow, winemakers or may follow the stories behind it or may do a little more in-depth stuff which piques their interest. So yeah, well, this $40 bottle of wine is made by this person or in this fashion, and I'd love to
Right.
try that, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and price is driven by different factors. Some winemakers, they want to produce something special, and the production levels are lower, so they only have so much to actually go around with. Um, you hear about this term single vineyard productions, which means
Mhm.
basically a particular wine was made from grapes that were grown in a 1 acre of vineyard, and it takes a lot of work to tend to 1 acre and to pay attention to the quality of the grape growing, which results into more labor, more cost, which reflects on the cost of the wine. So single vineyards are more cared to productions than wines that are made from multiple vineyards, right?
But there you go. There's another point. Another point that maybe people don't know.
That's what we're here for. We want to shed light and to understand what is the differences.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love learning about it. I love like making these points, making these connections with stuff that I thought about, but I didn't really understand why. And that's one of those points. And I certainly like respect the fact that there are expensive bottles of wine and why they're expensive. And I certainly respect the fact that there are inexpensive bottles of wine that are still very good and very worthy of you, buying and sitting at home and drinking or,
Yes.
bringing it to a friend's house. But like I respect all sides, especially now that I've heard, a lot more detail on why
And
these price
and
points.
I've seen this over and over. I think once you acquire an appreciation for something, then you enjoy it better.
Yeah.
Um, I've in so many of our events, seminars, sessions, um, this is such a classic scenario and it happens over and over. Folks come into our seminars, they tell us what they don't like for different reasons. And then when we give them the perspective and the rundown on a specific one that they don't like, and then we taste together as a group, it changes their mind,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think that you um, understanding why that is and then appreciating why that is then results into a different perspective and enjoyment.
Well,
And yeah,
I'm just gonna say, like, wine is not just sitting in front of a glass and drinking a liquid. Wine
it is.
is like a lifestyle. It's like a social aspect. It's like a atmosphere. It's like an experience. It's like what you're doing at the moment. It combines elements of all those things, and
Right.
that will dictate what you are tasting and how you enjoy it.
100%. 100%. So our goal is to create the environment, whether it's in person or virtually, so that, you know, a lot of folks, we get tons of emails, messages, with all these questions all the time. And it just goes to show us that, there's a strong interest for folks to learn about wine, but it's just so overwhelming. And we
Yeah.
put these clips together so we can actually hopefully break it down to make it a little more easier to understand.
These clips certainly work for me because like I every time we do a clip, I leave the clip saying, all right, now I get it. Now I understand. Now I have an appreciation. And
Mission accomplished.
I've I've had a much more appreciation ever since we started all of this. And now I feel like I hope I don't ever get to the point where I'm a snob. But like I feel
Mm.
like every time I learn a little more and like, oh yeah, I get this. Like, I understand this. Like, this is cool. I love it.
And then maybe you have a bigger appreciation that knowing that we actually have our selection of Joseph Drouin's Saint Laurent on our shopping cart. So for our guests and audience who are watching the clip, you can definitely try this out and find it on our shopping cart, and you can purchase a bottle and try it for yourself.
Yeah, go to urbanwineclub.co and you could find all of our selections. Do it today. Do it right now and enjoy the same way we are enjoying it. And yeah, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this bottle. We're going to do some dinner right now for Father's Day. So
Excellent. Enjoy it.
that's what we're going to do. So, Foti,
All right.
thank you
My
again
pleasure.
for all the knowledge, for everything you taught me. Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day as well.
And
And until our next segment, cheers.
cheers to you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.